Everyone in wrestling has a story, from the biggest megastar to the lowest on the card, the wrestlers, the referees, the announcers, everyone in between. No two stories are exactly the same, but right now in wrestling, nobody's story has been more closely read than that of the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Cody's return to WWE and his meteoric rise to superstardom has been one of the coolest things to witness as of late. It's a small part of a larger odyssey that involved him leaving WWE, has contained its fair share of twists and turns, and in just a few days could reach a very satisfying conclusion. Man, I hope I didn't jinx it just now. 2 weeks ago, I looked at the story of Dusty Rhodes in the World Wrestling Federation, a story where the hero makes the best of a bad situation, though still walks away empty-handed. But what happens when the next generation steps up? This week, we look at the first act of a story fans have been dying to see finished since 2023, Cody Rhodes' first run in WWE. Shortly after inducting his father into the Hall of Fame during WrestleMania weekend in 2007, a 22-year-old Cody made his official debut that July on an episode of Raw. Hanging out backstage with his old man and decked out in his Sunday best, Cody and Dusty were confronted by Randy Orton.
You know what, since he won't introduce me, allow me to introduce myself.
Don't do it, kid. I've heard stories about where Orton's hand goes before he puts it out when he meets a newbie. Cody stood up for his father in response to Orton's disrespect, and 2 weeks later took on the Legend Killer in his in-ring debut. Cody came up on the short end, but for a first TV opponent, he couldn't have asked for much better. The Rhodes-Orton conflict led to a bull rope match between Big Dust and Randy at the Great American Bash, which I briefly touched upon in the Dusty retrospective. Randy won the match after dinking Dusty in the dome dead-a with the cowbell. Cody ran into the ring after the match to protect his father from Orton's punt of doom, which led to another one-on-one contest between him and Orton on Raw, and Randy hitting Dusty with the punt of doom. Ooh, nice try, kid. Either way, debuting alongside his father and working with one of the biggest names in Orton was a fairly lofty entry point for the Codester, and immediately gave off the impression that big things were planned for him. Cody spent the next couple of months juggling both a main roster schedule and OVW tapings on his way out of developmental, and by September, Cody's next big test was the ultimate rookie buster, Hardcore Holly. Rhodes took his licks from the former Sparky Plug repeatedly for the next month, losing 4 matches in a row. Damn, even the worst person playing career mode would have gotten at least 1 win by now, right? After getting his CAW template-looking self beat up on a weekly basis, Cody had finally earned enough attribute points to earn Hardcore's respect, and the two even won Raw's version of the tag team titles on his 15th anniversary episode. Look, I hate to keep making video game references here, but this deadass feels like a career mode storyline. The title run wasn't much to write home about, but it did give Cody more of that primetime exposure. Then in the spring of 2008, a new generational talent entered the chat.
The newest member of the Raw roster, my son, Ted DiBiase.
In came Ted DiBiase Jr., the new young prospect who observers believed had what it took to become a breakout star in his own right. After weeks of taunting Holly and Rhodes, the stage was set for a title match at Night of Champions, the champs versus Ted and a mystery partner of his choosing. But it turned out to be a swerve, bro, as Cody betrayed Holly, revealing himself as DiBiase's new partner as the title switched hands. Well, half of them changed hands, but you get what I mean. Look at how far we've come since 1990. Just 17 years earlier, Ted's dad bought the loyalty of the special lady of Cody's dad, then ran him and his brother out of the WWF. And now, the next generation is working together. You love to see it.
I'm not my father's son.
The turn would spell the end of Hardcore Holly's last major angle before his WWE release, while Cody and Ted's new partnership began to take flight. Playing the role of a pair of spoiled rich Nepo hires, Team Priceless didn't hold on to the belts for long before they found themselves in the way of John Cena and Batista's SummerSlam build. In just one of the dozens of can they coexist scenarios the company's done over the years, Cena and Batista were made to team up for the tag titles, won them, then dropped them back to Rhodes and DiBiase the very next week because no, in fact, they could not.
Tag team titles again! And the new World Tag Team Champions!
After overcoming that hurdle, the champs began to run with Manu, another wrestler with a famous lineage, the son of Afa of the Wild Samoans. Even Sim Snuka, the former Deuce, wanted a piece of the action, but shut up, Sim Snuka, nobody likes you! Eventually, Manu was cast out as well, never to do anything of note in WWE or wrestling in general again, and soon Rhodes and DiBiase linked up with their new mentor in Randy Orton to form the group Legacy. Now keep in mind, Orton not only punted Cody's dad in the head, he did the same thing to Ted Jr. just a couple of months before this, and now they're both working for him? The forgiveness in these young men. You know what, folks? I think the future's looking all right. Much like how Evolution took over Raw in the years before this, Legacy served as the Red Show's primary baddie stable. For months, the trio ran roughshod on Monday nights, with Rhodes and DiBiase basically serving as Orton's lackeys to serve his objectives. Roughing up his opponents for him, getting him coffee, shitting in co-workers' bags, you know, young boy stuff. Together, this collection of half-naked, oiled-up Abercrombie models became the scourge of WWE. In January of 2009, the rookies helped Orton endure the field to win that year's Royal Rumble match and a spot on the main event of WrestleMania. Ah yes, 2009, I remember it well, the beginning of WWE's long, miserable, god-awful winter. By this point, Orton's character was full-on cuckoo bananas, having assaulted multiple members of the McMahon family and blaming it all on a mental health disorder called IED. Things between him and WWE champ Triple H reached a boiling point going into their title match at Mania. But before that, Legacy had to endure their biggest obstacle of all, Triple H and a pair of uncoordinated non-wrestlers with a grudge. Though it was a cool moment to see the McMahon-Helmsley boys rise up after weeks of torment from Legacy, fans then had to see the six men fight, and that's never any fun. Shane couldn't connect with a punch if it called him on the phone, while Vince's suit bones often did the exact opposite. Legacy had become a pretty legitimate heel group, but in my opinion, nobody looks good after feuding with babyface McMahons. For all the deep emotions and animosity the storyline was meant to conjure up, Orton and Triple H went on to have one of the most disproportionately boring WrestleMania main events of all time, ending with the H-Man getting the win. But the Legend Killer's fortunes improved the next month at Backlash, when Legacy took on Trips, Batista, and Shane McMahon in the semi-main event. Not only did Orton and company win the match, by virtue of the stipulations, Orton regained the title as a result. Boy, leave it to Backlash to correct WrestleMania's mistakes. While Orton was busy dealing with other title contenders, Cody and DiBiase kept making Triple H's life a living hell. The cerebral assassin was forced to search high and low for an old friend who had been missing for some time.
Alright. I'm in. Yeah.
Oh no, not 2009, DX! That's the really bad revival! It was time for Hunter and Sean to dust off their green and black ring attire and their cheesy jokes. DX 2.0 was back, Jack, and the boys were ready to elevate some young talent. DX beat the youngsters at SummerSlam, but to their credit, actually lost via submission the next month at Breaking Point. But at Hell in a Cell that year, poor Cody and Ted might as well have put on green track pants and called themselves the Spirit Squad, because DX thoroughly trounced them. Sure, it was good experience for the younger guys to share that rarefied air with the real stars in the company, but with two of the most powerful guys and best buds in WWE at front and center reuniting, you knew who was going over. Around this time, the wheels were in motion to break up Legacy, barely a year after they'd formed. First, there were the times that both Ted and Cody's respective fathers showed up to guest host Monday Night Raw. Ah yes, the guest host era! Remember what I said about that long winter? First, Papa Ted booked his son in a match against Orton. Though Sr. was clearly trying to motivate Jr. to be his own man, the younger DiBiase stayed in line even after losing. A short while later, Dusty Rhodes was in charge for the week and put the fruit of his loins, if you will, against Orton in a title match, with Orton's hated rival John Cena as the guest ref.
There's nothing a father wouldn't do for his son. John, I'm sorry, buddy.
Unlike how it felt with the DiBiases earlier, the Cody match was a setup from the start, as Dusty knowingly arranged and sanctioned a Legacy hit job in disguise. I gotta say, elder statesman heel Dusty is just so weird to look at. It's like so unlike what you're used to. It's kind of like when he was in the NWO that one time. It's like seeing Jordan in the Wizards jersey. So bizarre. But even after the collusion, Orton still hit Dust with the RKO, cause he crazy. Eventually, the two youngins finally had enough and stood up to their evil, abusive, and manipulative leader, the total 100% babyface in this feud. Yeah, that's exactly how we envisioned it. Somehow in the course of the storyline, Orton became the sympathetic one, his abused underlings now portrayed as ungrateful for rejecting him. The story had already kind of written itself beforehand, only now it felt like it was being run through a bad AI filter. So Orton getting kicked out of Evolution in 2004, easy way to make a babyface, but somehow they screwed that up. Now in 2010, Rhodes and DiBiase finally rising up against their psychotic boss in Orton. Again, easy story, but now somehow that makes Orton the face, and it somehow works out better? Their triple threat match at WrestleMania 26 was more of a glorified 2-on-1 situation. The rule of colluding heels is that they always get real stupid when it's time to figure out who gets the deciding pinfall, and our boys were no exception. Eventually, Orton picked up the win all by his lonesome and celebrated with his giant LED cylinder. Seriously, what was with that thing all show? Hated it. Shortly after Mania, Priceless split up and Cody was drafted to SmackDown, and soon he began going through the first of what would be several changes and alterations to his character. I'm not saying they were of Ed Leslie-ian proportions, but let's just say there's a reason there are so many unlockable Codys in the new video game.
My name is Dashing Cody Rhodes.
After a few weeks on SmackDown, Cody debuted his new dashing gimmick, a spin on the classic pretty boy who's in love with himself. He was now obsessed with his appearance, checking himself out in the mirror and protecting his beautiful face at all costs. He was also the first person to employ Mirrortron technology.
With a delicate use of tweezers, rub it in. Move it around in a nice circular motion. Just a few short strokes.
It was a pretty fitting gimmick for him. My one question, though, was where was any of this in the year or so leading up to it? I mean, he'd been in a fair number of no-holds-barred matches up to that point, got hit in the face a fair amount, never once brought this up. My theory is that Cody had spent years feeling doubtful and self-conscious about his image. Then after leaving Orton's clutches, woke up one day and realized, hey yeah, I do look good. I'm making this my entire personality now. Oh, and lest we forget, his new theme was the first of many over the years to feature this catchy lyric. Shortly after WrestleMania season, Cody became the pro for Husky Harris on season 2 of the original version of NXT. The show was part wrestling and part reality competition. In the future, Bray Wyatt did fairly well for himself, making it to one of the final rounds of cuts at week 11. Those two rarely if ever interacted on main roster television, but Cody did have a brief yet successful partnership with Drew McIntyre. And when I say brief, I mean it. In September, they won the big pennies in a tag team turmoil match less than a week after first joining forces. Then 1 month later, they dropped the belts to John Cena and David Otunga, and on the very next show, they split up, and that was it. Man, think of how much bigger and better stars Cody and Drew are today. Imagine if they each win their respective title matches at Mania this year, then join forces? They could own the company in 2 days. The dashing gimmick took a dark turn in early 2011 when Rey Mysterio's knee brace hit Cody in the snoot and caused a broken nose. The Codester believed himself to be horribly disfigured from the injury, and he wore a protective mask which revealed he looked the exact same.
And I see what once was dashing reduced to this!
In what's really one of the great highlights of his first WWE run, Cody took the body dysmorphia gimmick that Kane had in 2003 and took it to new heights when he became undashing. He would tell people to cover up their own faces because their ugliness offended him. He had helpers hand out paper bags for fans to put on. And of course, his protective face mask was also used as a weapon to get heat. It was very Phantom of the Opera-esque, but man, imagine how much over it could have been if he wore a big hooded robe or hid in the rafters of the basements of the arenas. I would put a musical gag right here, but I already referenced Phantom in a video last month, and I referenced a different musical earlier in this video. I'm pretty sure I've used up all the ones I got this year. The gimmick change led to Cody getting his first WrestleMania win in a rematch with Mysterio, and it really helped Cody pick up some steam. He reunited with his old partner in Ted DiBiase, took part in that year's Money in the Bank match. Then in August, Cody won the Intercontinental Championship from Ezekiel Jackson. With the singles title finally in his hands, he immediately turned on DiBiase and briefly feuded with him before turning his attention back to the man he learned under for so long in Orton. He cost Randy a world title shot, claiming revenge for the mistreatment he had suffered from him when he was in Legacy. Don't blame Randy for that one, bro. You can blame the writers for trying to fuck on you. The two traded wins over the course of several months, even though the Intercontinental title was never on the line once during their feud. So do we want to place value on the belt or don't we? Either way, the feud had its blow-off in a street fight on SmackDown that November. Orton broke Cody's mask in the course of the action, which signaled the end of the undashing character. But the end of one era brought about the beginning of another. In one of the few examples of wrestling ever moving backward, and it working, Cody reintroduced a version of the classic IC title design, the one associated with guys like Randy Savage, Honky Tonk Man, or Razor Ramon. It was pretty sweet. For a belt that had often felt mistreated, Cody's run ended up being one of the more prominent and successful ones the company had seen in some time. He even brought Booker T out of semi-retirement with a short program over the belt. He went more than 40 minutes in the 2012 Rumble match. It was in that match where his featured program with the Big Show would get its start. As Show worked up to challenge Rhodes for the Intercontinental belt at WrestleMania, Cody responded by showcasing all of the big man's accomplishments of Mania's past, which included losing. Lots and lots of losing. Except for when he and Kane retained their tag titles against Carlito and Chris Masters at 22, and when their team squashed the Core at 27, the Big Show's WrestleMania record had been abysmal up to that point, like nearly as bad as Tito Santana's. And for the first time, somebody had the gall to bring that fact up. Not just his losses and embarrassing moments, but even the times when he wasn't there.
WrestleMania, baby!
Woo! But laughing at all those embarrassments came back to bite Cody in the keister when the Big Show finally bested him at WrestleMania 28 in about 5 minutes to claim his first ever IC title. The two had a rematch of the table variety 1 month later at Extreme Rules. Cody regained the belt after he got the closest wrestling's ever gonna get to someone literally stepping on a banana peel, when the Big Show got knocked off the apron and stepped through the table below him, causing it to break. Man, crying, comedy, the Big Show can truly do it all. Oh, no, I didn't say I had time for that. Cody's second reign as IC champ was not nearly as long-lived as his first, as he dropped the belt to Christian just 1 month later. The rest of Cody's summer was rather unremarkable, and its autumn looked the same until one day when he met a man in a blue bathrobe.
The essence of mustachioed magnificence, the intellectual savior of the masses, Team Rhodes Scholars!
By that September, Cody and Damian Sandow began teaming up on the regular, calling themselves the Rhodes Scholars. They were a pretty entertaining tandem because of their combined promo abilities and their chemistry together.
You know what? I wouldn't take the word of a man dressed like Colonel Damn Sanders anyways over my esteemed tag team partner.
Thank you.
But of course, we cannot discount the magnetic aura of the real star of the act, Cody's sweet mustache. But after initially gaining some traction, the Rhodes Scholars went down the path so many other funny heels in WWE do, booked to lose week after week, month after month, with the writers hoping that their entertainment value alone could overcome that fact. After Cody had competed at 2 straight WrestleManias, he and Sandow were to team up with the Bella Twins and take on Brodus Clay, Sweet Tea, and the Funkadactyls at Mania 29, only for the match to be cut for time. Man, just think, that match featured 2 future NWA World Champions, and if we had to guess back then which 2 it was, I don't think any of us would have gotten them both right. Like most of Cody's prior relationships, this one with Sandow also went up in smoke once Damian betrayed him to win the coveted Money in the Bank briefcase. Cody shaved off his beautiful mustache, symbolizing the end of another era, and was able to beat his former partner in back-to-back matches at SummerSlam 2013 and the following episode of Raw. It was part of that once richly held tradition where the holder of the briefcase loses a shit ton of matches just before the cash-in so the surprise can be even bigger, except in the case it wasn't because because Sandow lost his anyway, lol. Perhaps Cody's best run during this time began that September when he spoke out against the evil authority and was forced to put his career on the line against Orton as a result. He lost the match and took a few weeks off to get married to his fiancée Brandy, aka NXT's Eden. While he was gone, older brother Dustin emerged from the shadows once again as Goldust and fought to get Cody's job back, only for him to be bested by Orton as well. As has been documented on this channel, the storyline led to all three of the Rhodes men coming together to fight Triple H and Stephanie McMahon's corrupt regime. And at Battleground, Cody and Dustin had a hell of a tag match against Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns of the Shield to get their jobs back, and get them they did. The momentum carried them to another victory over the Shield just days later to win the tag team titles. Okay, so I've talked about that angle now on the Authority video, the Goldust video, the Dusty video, and now the Cody video. I think it's safe to say I have driven this storyline into the ground. Good job. Good job, me. The match was one of the few bright spots of the Authority storyline for quite a while. Go watch my video about the Authority to learn more. But along with that, it was our first real glimpse of the babyface star that Cody would eventually become. So what did the company do with Cody after this? If you guessed, book him into a losing streak and change his gimmick again, I'm happy to let you know that WWE is accepting resumes on their corporate website. After dropping the tag titles to the New Age Outlaws at the Royal Rumble, God, there's a thing I forgot happened in 2014. The Rhodes went on a multi-month downward spiral as Cody blamed himself for their woes. He determined that it was time for a change. Thus, Stardust was born. Named after one of his father's earlier nicknames, Stardust was a cosmic-flavored, fantastical, somewhat hissier version of his brother's enduring Goldust gimmick, with a bit of Mr. Sinister thrown in for good measure. Constantly in search of the cosmic key, the character was campy, outrageous, and totally unlike Cody in practically every way, though a bit too much like Goldust in others.
And he walks in just like that.
A shooting star.
The sun, it's the closest star to Earth. It's Alpha Centauri to find. I can't stop. We have to find the key.
Most bizarre.
What?
This new coat of paint helped the brothers regain the tag team titles from the Usos at Night of Champions that September, but the bloom fell off the rose rather quickly as the two were titleless by Survivor Series. What was seemingly meant as a short-term fix turned into a long-term course for Cody, as he and Dustin put their bizarre stamp on the tag team division for all of 2014. And although it was an acquired taste for some fans, the Stardust character gave Cody a lot of mileage with the younger crowd. Stardust masks and gloves were sold on WWE Shop, and he was even immortalized in a pair of cartoon features, once alongside his brother in the second Scooby-Doo and WWE crossover in 2016, and then the Jetsons crossover 1 year later.
The world is filled with surprises. Tick-tock, cosmic clock, time's run out for you.
Never mind the fact that those movies came out after he had already left the company, but we'll get to that part of the story in due time. By the turn of the year, the Brothers in Paint had built up another losing streak, which, you guessed it, meant it was time for Cody to turn heel once again. He attacked his brother after another loss, then disowned his own father backstage, which is so damn sad knowing they would never get an on-air reconciliation. According to the story, Cody Rhodes was no more, only Stardust. The Brotherhood, the whole Rhodes family was now in shambles, but Goldust made it clear he wanted his brother back. Oh man, finally, a Cody versus Dustin feud. The two sons of one of the biggest legends in wrestling finally colliding. It might not have been how people envisioned, but hey, we were getting the match at Fastlane, and if it was good enough, maybe it would build to a rematch at WrestleMania.
Did he get it?
Wow, that was so...
Well, the family had one more depressing confrontation in the back afterward, then that was pretty much it for this chapter. There were no plans beyond this match, no rematch at Mania, just Goldust getting his win and Stardust's heel run being neutered before it could even take off. But things did get interesting the following night in an online exclusive post-match interview with his real-life wife Brandy at Raw. Here, Stardust was a lot less far out than usual. He was more angry, more passionate, even dropping the occasional inside reference.
I'm going to tell you about Triton, one of the moons of Jupiter, or the age of Aquarius, or even how Stardust spends his nights.
Stardust said some pretty damning stuff about members of the old guard still in the company, people he likely had no creative future with, claiming he wanted to get the attitude out.
The slack is Goldust. The Slack is Big Show, is Kane, is Mark Henry. It's all these hanger-ons. Give me a paycheck. Old men talking, young men dying.
Holy hell, now that is a promo. Wow, the energy in that one was just fire. That's something you could look at and say, hey, you could do something with this. Well, I'm happy to let you know the company did absolutely nothing with that. By this point, Cody was not a fan of this character, and even his father suggested he quit the company over it. But at least Stardust made it to WrestleMania 31, appearing in a multi-man ladder match for the Intercontinental title. After a big international tour where Cody and Dustin got to make up for the Fastlane debacle, Stardust returned stateside to lose, and lose again. But like his time in the Rhodes Scholars, he stuck around because he was such a weird character you couldn't not use him. Getting away from Goldust allowed him to make his look and presentation more his own. At one point, he was accused by Michael Cole of living the gimmick.
There has yet to be, there currently isn't, and there never will be anything like me.
I know that I'm in the minority when I say this, but I'm going to stick up for the character right now. Obviously, Cody Rhodes, far better as himself, but I think they really had something with Stardust. I like the idea of this chaotic, funny villain running around and causing havoc with his cosmic antics, somewhere between Bray Wyatt and Danhausen on the intimidation scale. But it seemed like WWE never wanted to quite go that far, and more importantly, the man's heart wasn't really in it. Then on June 5th, the wrestling world lost a legend, and the Rhodes boys lost their father when Dusty Rhodes passed away as a result of kidney failure. And after wrestling a handful of house show dates immediately following, Cody was off the road for the rest of the month. With Dusty's passing, a lot of people felt that it was time to drop the Stardust character and allow Cody to be, well, Cody again. But Cody felt like he was in an odd place. He didn't want to be Stardust, but as he has stated in multiple interviews, he didn't really want to be Cody Rhodes either. Ultimately, the Prince of Dark Matter remained. But despite that, what happened next with Stardust is arguably one of the most historically important moments in modern wrestling, and I mean that with all sincerity. On August 3rd, actor Stephen Amell showed up to attend Monday Night Raw. The star of Arrow got into it with Stardust and King Barrett, but was rescued by a high-flying babyface Neville, and it led to a tag team match at SummerSlam, which the good guys won. Let's circle back to this moment in 3 or so years. The Cosmic Kingdom broke up after their loss, shock, and soon afterwards Stardust linked up with Connor and Victor of the Ascension, though that group didn't go anywhere either. Stardust's highest profile moment in 2016 was being in another IC title multi-man ladder match at WrestleMania 32, where he got to pay tribute to his father with his gear. But beyond that, he wandered aimlessly through the vast and empty expanse that's known as the WWE mid-card for the remainder of his run. Then in May of 2016, Cody announced on Twitter that he had requested his release from the company, which was granted one day later. In a later statement on Twitter, which has since been deleted, Cody partly blamed his departure on his frustrations with creative ignoring him when he tried to pitch ideas. He also claimed that neither Vince or Triple H saw him as a star player and that the best actors didn't accept lesser roles. Cody bet on himself and took his act to the Independents, to TNA, to Ring of Honor, to New Japan, and finally to All Elite Wrestling, the company founded by himself, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Tony Khan. And it was there that Cody grew into the star he felt he was destined to be, creating all new moments for legions of fans. In fact, Cody was so successful at it, he eventually outgrew the promotion he helped build, and in 2022, he shocked the wrestling world once again. Cody's decision to break free from WWE in 2016 sent shockwaves through the wrestling industry that are still being felt today. And 6 years later, his decision to go back to WWE has been great for both his career and the company's creative trajectory. Since returning from that nasty pectoral injury the same year he came back into the fold, Cody has been cemented as the top star that Vince and Triple H had failed to see before. He's the top babyface, the #1 hero, and hope for the future of WWE. And as of this video's release, he is just days away from potentially doing the unthinkable and knocking Roman Reigns off his place on top in the main event of WrestleMania 40. The story of Cody Rhodes has been one of the most fascinating to follow for the last 18 years. Brought in with massive expectations, Cody had a natural talent that could be spotted from a mile away, but spent several years looking like a walking missed opportunity, frequently stunted and constantly shuffled around by WWE's creative vision. It took him leaving the company in order to find himself and grow his own worth in ways that the corporate giant couldn't have done had he stayed. But now that story is reaching its climax, and this WrestleMania weekend, Cody once again has the chance to finish that story and finally accomplish the long-time goal of holding the WWE Championship. After the controversy from last year's main event loss, the company has the rare opportunity at a second chance. We'll have to wait and see if they take it. But what did you think of Cody's first run in WWE? What were your favorite matches and moments from that period? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.